I'm telling this so that at least someone knows the truth. Because the police won't believe me. My parents will never understand. And a psychologist will just write in my file, acute post-traumatic syndrome. A defense mechanism, replacement of reality with fantasies. But these are not fantasies. The blood on my hands was real. It didn't wash off for a long time. It wasn't the ghostly kind you see in dreams. It was real, thick, sticky, smelling of rust and salt. I washed my hands until they started to hurt. But it still felt like the blood remained, soaked into my pores, into the lines on my palms, into my memory. It happened last Saturday. I was sitting on the windowsill in my room, scrolling through my feed, when Katya suddenly texted in our group chat, "Girls, I found such a cool place, an abandoned camp. All the walls are covered in graffiti. The sunset looks insane there. It'll be perfect for photos. Let's go right now." Alisa replied immediately that she was in. Siawe naftos. People who are afraid of missing something important, even if that important thing doesn't really exist. I asked, "Isn't it too late?" Katya sent a laughing emoji and wrote, "What? Are you scared, Den? We're not spending the night in the woods. We'll just take some pictures and come back. The buses run until 10. Den is my nickname. That's what my friends call me. I'm not the kind of person who jumps into adventures first. I always assess the risks, think things through, and only then decide. But that day, for some reason, I agreed. Maybe because the day had been nice and calm. Maybe because Katya knew how to persuade. Or maybe because fate had already decided everything for me. I just didn't know it yet. We met at the bus stop at 5 in the evening. Katya was wearing her favorite jacket and those huge ripped jeans. Alisa came in a cute white dress, with a headband and her big eyes, always filled with this naive wonder. She was half a year younger than us, and we kind of looked after her, even though she was half a head taller than me. We waited for the bus. It arrived dirty, rattling, like it might fall apart any second. We sat at the very back so no one would bother us. Katya immediately pulled out her speaker and blasted music. Alisa was filming the view outside, sticking her hands out of the half-open window, and I just stared ahead. We talked, joked, laughed. Katya told us about a boy from a parallel class who had liked all her photos. Alisa listened carefully, and at that moment, I almost felt happy. Almost. Because somewhere deep inside, even then, something was already stirring, a sense of unease. I blamed it on the approaching darkness. We had to get off at the Lesnaya stop. The conductor a taille veste, purple hair and a permanently annoyed expression, asked, "Girls, are you alone? It's the middle of nowhere out there. You still have about 2 kilometers through the forest to the camp. It's already getting dark. Where do you think you're going?" Katya just snorted and said we weren't little kids. We'd decide for ourselves. The conductor shook her head, displeased, and turned back to the window. We got off. The stop was nothing but a rusty sign, with a schedule no one had updated in 10 years. And next to it was a bench covered in scribbled love, confessions, and curses. Behind that sign The path led into the forest. Tall, straight pine trees with ginger trunks stood there. And in the dusk, they looked almost bloody. Katya stepped forward confidently. Elisa followed her, and I walked last. The air in the forest was different. It pressed against the skin. A heavy silence surrounded us. Only our steps crunched on the gravel. Katya turned around and asked, "Have you heard? They say there's a ghost of old pioneers in these woods. The ones who were abused by their counselors." Elisa got scared, and I told Katya to stop. But Katya never wanted to stop. And she couldn't. She always pushed things until they became absurd. We had been walking for about 20 minutes when I noticed the path began to wind. At first, I thought I was imagining it because it was getting dark. Katya turned on her phone flashlight, and the beam tore shapes out of the darkness. Twisted roots sticking out of the ground. And something else. Glowy. Probably a fox. Elisa gasped, and the fox disappeared. Katya laughed. "Cowards. It's just a fox. It's afraid of you." We kept going, but to the camp. Instead, the forest grew denser. The pines were replaced by dark spruces with branches hanging low to the ground. And the smell changed, no longer resinous, but damp, stagnant, rotten. Katya was the first to stop. I saw her tense up. This is strange. I remember there being a fork here, left to the camp, right to the lake. But there's only one path. "I don't get it," she said quietly. We were standing in a small clearing surrounded by bushes. There was no way back, or rather, there had been. But when we turned around, the path we came from had changed. Instead of one trail, there were now three. 3 identical paths. "This isn't funny," Elisa giggled nervously. I clenched my fists so my fingers wouldn't shake. And then I saw it. Between the trees, about 30 meters away, stood a silhouette, tall, grey, as if made of fog rising from the ground. Too tall, with arms hanging almost to the ground, reaching its knees. Maybe even lower. It stood completely still, but I could feel it watching us. Staring at us with its whole being. Katya turned to me. "Why did you freeze?" she asked. I blinked, and the silhouette was gone, dissolved into the fog, as if it had never been there. "It's nothing. I imagined it," I said. "Let's go there." I pointed to the left at random, just not to stand still. Just to move somewhere, anywhere. Instead of waiting for that silence to crush us. And we ran, without saying a word. Our legs just carried us, because each of us was terrified, even if none of us admitted it. Branches whipped our faces, tangled in our hair, tore at our clothes. I could hear Elisa sobbing as she ran. I could hear Katya swearing as the forest turned into a labyrinth. Around every turn, a new corridor of tree trunks waited for us. A new dead end of bushes. A new clearing identical to the last one, the same fallen log. The same route, shaped like a twisted hand. The same patches of moss on the bark. The air grew heavy and damp, and it became hard to breathe. Katya was the first to stumble. She fell so suddenly, as if something had pulled her leg. She lay on the ground, and I heard her cry out. I ran up to her, leaned down, and in the light of the flashlight, still in her hand, I saw blood seeping through her torn jeans, dark, almost black in that dim light. The metallic smell hit my nose sharply. "Get up," I said, grabbing her hand and pulling. She lifted her head, and I saw her face. Huge eyes were staring at me, but there were no whites. Only a deep, bottomless, consuming blackness. It lasted a second. I blinked and saw Katya again, scared, with normal eyes and mascara smeared across her cheeks from tears. It just seemed that way. Just my imagination. "Run," I shouted, and we ran again. Elisa was barely keeping up somewhere behind us. We burst into a small round, clearing surrounded by a wall of tall fir trees. In the center of the clearing stood Elisa. But just a moment ago, she had been behind us, mid-herbacteus, staring at a huge oak, tree split by lightning. The oak was old, dead, its bark peeling off, and in the moonlight, which had suddenly broken through the clouds. It looked like the skeleton of a giant. "Elisa, are you out of your mind?" Première asquette. Then she slowly turned around. On her white dress, from her throat down to her stomach, a crimson stain was spreading. It grew right before my eyes, soaking into the fabric, running in hot streams. Her mouth opened, but instead of a scream, only a hoarse hiss came out, like air escaping from a punctured lung. Katya screamed for me not to go near her, but I was already running. I couldn't not go. It was Elisa. I grabbed her by the shoulders, and my fingers instantly became wet and sticky. The blood was hot, almost boiling. It was dripping from somewhere above. I lifted my head. On the massive oak sat a monster. It was somewhat human-shaped, but its skin was grey, smooth. Oui, tout à singulaire. Without pores, without marks. Its chest was open, and inside, instead of organs, the same grey mist swirled, the very fog it seemed to be made of. It flowed within it. But the worst were its hands, long, unnaturally thin fingers, studded with sharp, razor-like bony growths. From the very tip of one of them, a thick red drop was falling onto Elisa. The drop fell slowly, heavily, and I watched it sink into the fabric of her dress. Eating through fabric, and eating through skin too, like acid. The creature just looked at us with its horrifying eyes. Time froze in that moment. I heard Elisa's heart beating fast. I felt her life draining out of her, along with the blood soaking into my jeans. The creature tilted its head, and I saw its face. It had no mouth, no nose, only smooth grey skin. There were only eyes, filled with hunger. Katya screamed, and it was a wild, animalistic cry full of terror that couldn't fit inside a chest. The monster moved. I didn't even see it. It was fast requestion, turning into a choking gurgle. I turned around. She was on her knees, pressing her hands to her throat. Blood was pouring through her fingers. She looked at me, her eyes full of tears and confusion. There were questions in her gaze. Why? For what? Then her body collapsed to the side and went still. I held Elisa's limp body close to me. She was already almost weightless. My hands, my clothes, my face, everything was covered in her blood. I tasted iron on my lips, and I didn't cry. I couldn't. Everything inside me tightened into a cold, hardened knot of fear that left no room for tears. The creature silently landed in a crouch in front of me, like a huge lizard, and then slowly straightened. It was tall, thin, with limbs that bent in unnatural places. It stood just a meter away, watching me. Now I saw it had a mouth. It opened vertically, splitting its head in two, right between the eyes, and running down toward the neck. And from that black depth, dozens of the same glowing eyes were looking at me, just like the ones on its face. They moved inside its throat, rolling, blinking. I closed my eyes. I thought it would hurt now, that my blood would mix with the blood of my friends on this cursed clearing. I thought about my mom waiting for me at home, and my dad working the night shift, how they would live without me, how they would lose their minds. I thought about the photos we never took, the reason we came here. All kinds of meaningless thoughts filled my head, fragments of memories, smells. I waited for the blow. But instead of pain, I heard a voice, a hissing voice, right inside my head. It wasn't loud, but it filled everything, pushing out all other thoughts. You don't scream. You see, you smell. Different. I opened my eyes. It leaned over me. From its vertical mouth came cold, damp air, the smell of earth, the smell of an old grave. It was studying me. The glowing eyes inside its throat froze, staring straight at me. What are you? I asked, and my voice came out hoarse, almost voiceless. The creature jerked its head, as if surprised. What are you? It repeated my words, distorting them, making them sound like the creaking of trees. You don't scream, it said again, and then added, you smell. No like them. You smell of smoke. Old smoke. I didn't understand what it meant. I don't smoke. No one in our house has ever smoked. But something in its words made me remember my grandmother's house in the village. The stove. The smell of burnt wood left after the fire. I hadn't been there in 5 years. How could it know? And then I realized it didn't know. It felt. It sensed something in me that wasn't in the others. Maybe that's why I didn't scream when I first saw it. Maybe that's why I ran to Elisa instead of away from her. Maybe there was something in me just as dark as it. Elisa twitched in my arms one last time and then went completely still. I sat on the ground, holding my dead friend, and looked into the monster's eyes. You killed them, I said quietly. It tilted its head to the side, like a dog that doesn't understand a command. They screamed. The blood is warm when they scream, it replied. There was no malice in its voice. No cruelty. Just a statement of fact, as if it were talking about the weather. For it, killing was as natural as breathing is for us, comma. I began to shake, from horror, disgust, and helpless rage. I wanted to scream, to throw myself at it, to tear that smooth, grey skin apart with my bare hands. But I remained still. Somewhere deep inside me, another instinct had awakened, the instinct to survive. It told me, don't move, don't scream, don't show fear. Let her go, the creature said, looking at Elisa's body. At first, I didn't understand it was speaking to me. Let go of the dead. She is already cold. Blood doesn't warm her anymore. Slowly, very slowly, I unclenched my hands. Elisa's body slipped to the ground. Premier sawer face covered, eye open, staring at the indifferent stars. Premier stood up. My legs trembled, buckled with fear, but I stayed on my feet. The creature stood opposite me, a couple of meters away. Will you walk me out? Premier asked. My voice almost casual as if range for directions. I don't know where those words came from. Maybe it was shock. Maybe madness. Or maybe It was the only way to survive in a situation where survival was impossible. The creature froze. The glowing eyes inside its throat flickered rapidly. "Walk you out?" it repeated, tasting the words. "Yes, back to where I came from. Home. You know the way." "You're the master here," I said, looking straight into its eyes. It was silent for a long time. The moon disappeared behind clouds, and the clearing sank into darkness. I could only hear my own breathing. Then a faint, phosphorescent light appeared, coming from its body. Its grey skin glowed. And in that light, I saw the clearing covered in bones, not only human ones, but huge skulls of animals I had never seen before. And among them, small, fragile children's bones. "Follow me," it said, comma. And it walked forward without turning around, without checking if I was following. It simply moved through the forest. And its glowing back became the only guide in this nightmare. Première followed. I stepped over Koch's body, trying not to look at her face. I passed Elisa, leaving her lying on that terrible clearing. I followed the creature that had killed my friends, because, for me, it was the only chance to get out. We walked for a long time, maybe an hour, maybe two. I had lost track of time. The forest around us kept changing. The pines grew taller, the spruces thicker, then everything thinned out again. I stumbled over roots, fell, scraped my knees, got up, and kept going. The creature didn't wait, it just moved forward. And its light either came closer or drifted farther away depending on how fast I walked. A few times I lost sight of it. And then a wave of such overwhelming terror hit me that I started running blindly until I saw that saving glow again. I kept thinking about what it had said about the smell of smoke. My grandmother, on my mother's side, had been one of the old believers. She lived in a remote village, heated her stove the old way, and knew herbs. My mom used to say that grandma could stop blood and see things others couldn't. Maybe I inherited something from her. Maybe that's why I saw the monster before it attacked. Maybe that's why it didn't touch me. I didn't know. And I didn't want to know. This wasn't a dream. The mud under my feet was real. The blood on my clothes was real. The smell of death had soaked into my nose so deeply that I could feel it, even through the forest air. Suddenly, the creature stopped. I froze, afraid to even breathe. It stood with its back to me, comma. "Here," it said without turning around. I stepped closer and saw an opening ahead, the same road we had come from. It lay empty, flooded with moonlight. It led back to the bus stop, to people, to life. I took a step forward, but something made me turn around. The monster stood in the forest, its glowing eyes fixed on me. There was no threat in them, something else, curiosity, loneliness. "I don't know. You didn't scream. If you return, don't scream. Blood is warm when they scream. Cold blood is of no use to anyone," it said. Première luke datit, ça dans un monstre. Not in the way we think of monsters. It simply lived here, in this forest labyrinth, feeding on fear and pain, the way a spider feeds on flies. And those who didn't scream were a mystery to it. Maybe even something more. "What's your name?" Première asked. Itbli. All its eyes, on its face and inside its throat, blinked at once. "Do you have a name?" It shook its head. "I am the one who watches between the pines. I am the one who waits until the scream becomes silence. Those words sent a chill through me. I turned and walked toward the road. I didn't run. I walked calmly, because I knew I must not run. When I reached the bus stop, I sat down on the rusty bench. It was unbearably cold. I looked at my hands, at the dried blood under my nails, and I felt nothing. Half an hour later, the first morning bus arrived. The driver, an elderly man with a mustache, opened the door and asked, "My God, what's all this blood? What happened?" I looked at him and said, "It's not mine." He went pale, told me to sit down, and drove me to the police station. After that, everything was like a fog, endless questions. Interrogations, injections, sedatives. My mother's crying, my father's anxious silence. The police combed the forest. They didn't find any clearings or trails, only endless pines. They decided I had watched too many horror movies. Katya and Elisa were declared missing. A month later, the search was called off. They decided the girls had run away, gotten into bad company, and left for another city. Adults always invent convenient explanations so as not to lose their minds. I sit in my room for the third week. I don't go to school. I don't answer messages. I don't go outside. I watch the forest from the window. The forest that can be seen from my 9th floor apartment. I don't know what exactly I fear. Maybe it's because one evening, between the pines, a gray silhouette flashed. Or maybe it's because one day I'll wake up and realize it was just a nightmare. Now, when I write in the chat about what happened, it stays silent. I look at my hands, the blood long washed away. But deep under the skin, I can still see red stains. Sometimes, when the lights go out, complete silence falls. I hear a whisper, not from outside. Butin of leaves, the crack of branches, dry twigs. The voice says that I smell of old smoke. I know it's right. I didn't scream in the forest. And that's probably what's truly terrifying, because if I had screamed, I would have been like everyone else. But now I survived, making a pact with the silence. Part of me stayed there, on that clearing, among the bones under the glowing eyes. I still don't know what a person is, because people scream when they are in pain. And I don't scream. And in this silence, I hear the answer.